This one's looking like contrast is about to look real cool because it's super dark and super light. So we should get like the double effect on this one. But yeah, I'm just going to go through and paint all these trim pieces. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to pick out all the little side pieces as well. All the little side pieces. That sounds funny. Not what I meant. Yeah, that's nice though. I like that. I mean, you see what I mean about the lead belcher though? It's definitely like that darker, versus like the aluminum. But, you can't have, if you have a whole board of aluminum, it can just be too much. And especially like the underhive where like the floor tiles and everything is all metal too. Like for the other board is like an outside board and it's going to go on like I think it's called the Sector Mechanicus one. It's like the board that comes in Kill Team. So that one's got like, it has both like the outside kind of like moon looking one and, where it's like more sandy. And then it has like, kind of like this more, I think it's like the Sector Sanctoris or whatever. I can't think what it's called, but it's like essentially like the whole big game board that they had. It was like the giant Warhammer 40K version of like the Kill Team floor tiles. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But that's what like the other side looks like. So you kind of have like both options, but it doesn't have like as much metallic. It doesn't have like the whole like real metallic like construct feel to it in the same way, I guess. It's not even just about the colors, but also like, the whole board is essentially like, just a big metal construct. So, it can just be a little bit too much. You got to make sure that you're getting like, getting that contrast. I say the same things over and over again in these videos, but I guess it's just me like subconsciously like stressing the point. I guess it's not even really subconsciously because I'm definitely thinking. But it's funny when you record like yourself talking or narrating or doing like a YouTube video like this or whatever, it just sort of flows out. It's not like you're sitting here like thinking about what you're going to say or like scripting out what you're going to say. You're essentially like basically entertaining, talking about something, semi-relevant, I guess. And then also just like kind of narrating or explaining like what you're doing at the time. But it's essentially just a combination of those two things. Which is kind of funny. Because like normally sometimes I'll catch myself when I'm doing like more detail stuff. I'll catch myself like holding my breath. And you can't really do that when you paint. When you paint and like narrate at the same time, you obviously can't hold your breath. Sometimes you go full retard and like can't. No offense to anybody, sorry. I meant it like in the movie sense, like. But sometimes you go like full on like, just like completely stop talking, like can't narrate, can't think, because you're just so focused on like trying to get that perfect line or making sure you don't mess up or whatever. It's so funny. All I think is like it's like that Ben Stiller movie. It was like hilarious. Like what is it, Tropic Thunder or whatever? Or no, I think that was was that Tropic Thunder? Yeah, that's it, Tropic Thunder. I always mix that one up in the Will Ferrell one where they play basketball. That one's hilarious too. But completely different movie. That's because their basketball team's the Hawaiian Tropics. That's why too. Just going through picking out the little bolts right now. And I'm not even that worried about the parts that are like facing in. I want to focus on the parts that you'll be able to see when this thing is just like standing in its fixed position. And those are going to be like the ones that are kind of like more isolated by themselves. They're going to stand out a lot more. But when you have a bunch of them like all right by each other, your eye's not really going to see that in the same way, or like little imperfections, or if one's not like completely lit up. And then also, by the time we go through, get our washes on here and get, a couple more steps in here, this is all going to kind of blend together. And like I said, any imperfections, that you should make along the way, pretty much going to get taken care of. by that. So I don't expect, like, typically with stuff like this to have to do, you know, many touch-ups. And then, you know, obviously, like, you know, if we mess something up on our underlying color that we sprayed here, it's not like we can go back and like touch it up, like, oh, just a hint of red and a hint of brown and a hint of black and some khaki and we should be good to go. Like, no, that's it. I mean, the color's down here. We got to make sure it stays down and stays where we need it to be. I think I'm going to hit that vent right there too. I liked on the last set how lightening that up and then just like having some funk flowing out of there looked pretty good. And now I'm just going to go back around on the inside of that edge and I'm just going to work all those around. You don't technically have to do, I mean, like the underside if you don't want to. If you're in a hurry trying to save a little time, save it on the places no one would ever see, I guess, right? But I just assume do it. I mean, for the extra amount of time it takes. If you were trying to prep like a ton of terrain for a tournament or whatever, I get it. But I'm not. I mean, it's a battle report though, so the camera's always going to be up ahead. And I can just like pretend like it's zenithal lighting if you guys say anything about my unpainted bottoms. Alright, it's perfect. Just going around that edge. Using my pinky for stability. Keeping a nice even coat of paint on my brush, and then I'm just going around the whole thing in order so I make sure I don't miss a spot. I'm just rotating it in the same direction going around. And then at the end, I think I may the way the Mechanicus stuff is, it has like cool gauges and stuff like that on it, but for whatever reason, like, I don't know, it's hard for me to picture like these like glowing gauges like outside in like this like barren sand like moon wasteland or whatever. But for some reason, like inside the underhive, like, I don't know, they seem like they could easily be glowing like green or blue or something, and it wouldn't be like that weird for there to just be like random gauges monitoring things. But otherwise, it doesn't really make sense to me, because if it's just like some barren like wasteland in the middle of nowhere and there's like gauges on everything and like radiator like temp controls and all this like cool gadgetry all over the place, like, well, gauges really only like serve a purpose if there's somebody there to like read the gauge. And like, I feel like in the future, you know, if this is like super technology and all this stuff, like there's probably not going to be like a dude standing at each one of these gauges like reading it. Like, if anything, it would be like remotely controlled and like monitored. So I don't know, I think too far into this probably. But when you're sitting here painting like this for hours at a time, thinking about real life in comparison to the stuff you're painting, who is looking at these gauges? It just doesn't make sense. But yeah, so GW, who's looking at the gauges, man? Who's looking at the gauges? Is it the AdMac? Did they just show up in the night? Is it the elf on the shelf? Shows up, checks on the gauges. Maybe. Maybe not. I think I want to do these little vent guys. I don't want to leave too much for the gold on this, but I definitely want like gold highlights. But I don't want to go like too far with the gold. I want it to be like sort of reserved for like the hot piping, like you know, radiator type stuff. You know, kind of pick out like these details like that. You know, like the tanks in there, the tubing, metal tubing and stuff. Maybe some of these. Maybe I'll leave them like that. I haven't decided yet. But you know, I think that's going to give me like more of the overall look that I'm going for. And you can just kind of wing it too, you know what I mean? You might, like, honestly, you might paint something and be like, I don't like how that looks. And if you're not going nuts, like, with that thicky paint, straight out the pot, no water, no nothing, like, you could put a few layers of paint on and it's not going to hurt anything. And that's why you see people all the time do, like, test minis, because sometimes something, like, sounds awesome. And then when you go to, like, execute it, you're like, whoa, dude. Did I just paint something red and green and now it looks like a Christmas tree? Because I do not want a whole army that looks like a Christmas tree. Better not do that. But, you know, if you just, like, jump right in and, like, just rock out, like, your whole army with, like, that green rattle can or whatever, and then you come back in with the red afterwards, and then all of a sudden it hits you, it might be too late. You know what I mean? So, you know, either I think it's a good idea to plan ahead. I like they used to have where you could go in and kind of like put like a tank or like a model from your army or whatever in, and it would like basically just let you change around like the main colors or whatever, and you could kind of see like what the paint scheme would look like. I don't know if they still have that, but that was like an old school thing they used to have, and it was pretty slick. Definitely a you know, useful. Definitely useful. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I'm gonna take oops. Sorry, buddy. A little bit of that weathering. Yeah, I'm a big fan of all this stuff, though. Definitely came out awesome. Oh, what we make it to? 57? 44 to 57? That sounds about right. Oh, yeah, I think that's probably going to do it for today. Knocked out a good portion of terrain. How do we like that contrast now on the rusty stuff? I'm interested to hear. Now that's starting to stand out like a lot. You know, before you really couldn't, you know, before a lot of all this stuff was really just like blending together. And granted, the light's a little bit better now too. So that definitely makes an effect, or it makes a difference. But I mean, this is really, you could see this down here. You know, that really is like that rust effect that we were looking for. Came out real nice. And then again, like with the stairs, when you have like that railing has like the nice little bit of sheen on it, you know, but the actual stairs themselves, you know, are literally just that perfect little tetanus color. That tetanus. That straight infection. But yeah, overall, very pleased with the progress for today. And, oh, see one spot that I would like to touch up really quick here. And you know, that's something else too, you know, while I have you here. That's something else I really like to do is when I'm finished with something, or I think I'm finished with something, I like to like put it out and set it up and, you know, take pictures of it. And then I'll pull up the pictures, like not on my phone or something like that, but I will pull them up on my computer and sit down and like look at them like in the lighting on the big screen, like whatever. And you would be so surprised like how many little things you could pick up and fix and like make that model look exponentially better, because a lot of times something like your eye might not pick up but your camera will, just because of like the lighting or the just whatever it is, or like you may just realize like, oh man, I forgot to paint that little thing, or oh, there's something down there at like a weird angle you wouldn't see when you're looking down from a mini, but when it's like on the table it stands out to you. So I mean, there's little stuff like that. I always just try to photograph it and make sure it looks nice way before it's ever ready to like go out to like a client or something like that. I photograph it and take a look at it myself, and then I'm like, okay, that looks pretty awesome. And then I make my little improvements from there, and then I could photograph it again, and then usually still find something too. So, but there we have it, guys. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man. Thanks for tuning in again for another build and paint session. We're making some progress on ton of terrain, obviously, as you can see. So appreciate everybody coming back today. Appreciate all the support as always, and signing off.